Hey guys, welcome to the panel. So glad to that we could do this. We've been planning this for a while, but I'm so happy that we are here. So just a quick housekeeping tips for people who are attending the session. There is a Q&A box, so please do ask questions in the Q&A box. I will be keeping the questions towards the end, right? The questions and the discussion that we're going to have is going to be for the individuals on the panel and the expertise they have. They're not representing their brands per se, but today on screen, you probably have around 50, 60 years of experience in food safety and compliance. So I'm hoping that we'll have a good discussion around that and all the questions. We will get to all the questions, but that will be towards the end of the session, right? So I think one of my first questions would be for Bushra. Bushra, there are a lot of changes which are coming up with FSSAI, right? FSSAI is a fairly young law, and there are so many things which are changing. What do you think are some of the areas that a food business should focus on?
So I'll just, in my perspective, I really feel that although FSSAI has been formulated, established in the year 2006, the under FSSAI Act, which is 2006. And yeah, if you look at the history, it has been from 2008 as the, so on and all, if you just see why FSSAI has been formulated. Earlier, when we were facing issues with various rules which has been formulated by different ministries, different organizations for food commodities, or be it be adulteration. And then there was in 1954 the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act, which has been made. So holistically, if you just see why FSSAI is not a new body in my perspective. If you see the level of work the FSSAI is working with the scientific panels or the technical committees. So there's a huge and diverse experience they are getting it. However, if you just look at the set of rules and regulation which has recently come up from the year 2017, there had been a massive initiative when there was 10 at 10 initiative, which were being, and you were also a part of it in one of the initiative. So you see, there were so many things which has come up. Currently, there are, broadly, if you just talk about, there's an act, there's rules, then there is regulations. Regulations, dominantly, there are 21 for the food business operator to adhere to. And out of these 21 regulation, on and off, we often hear it out, certain orders, directives, notifications. So one is, yes, regulation, we need to be updated. From the year 2017, there had been immense, I will just name few, like the food additives, or be my advertisement and claim regulation, or packaging. So there are many amendments and the compendiums which is being added to the existing portfolio of regulations. And I think FBOs have to adhere to all of them. So this is my thought around it.
Absolutely. Harmanjot, what about you? What do you think are some of the aspects of the law that food business should focus on?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk on this. So I think, over the years, FSSAI has evolved in a very mature way. I think it's more from a inspection regulatory body to a body which is, there and, hand-holding the FPOs. I think majorly what the companies need to focus on right now. Every organization is just trying to interpret the law, interpret the guidelines in their own manner, and wherever suitable, or wherever they feel this can be implemented, they pick up the things from there. And sometimes they just miss fulfilling the intended objective which is there behind formulation of that law. That is one of the practical challenges I have seen, and would like all the companies to start working on, to see what is the hidden objective and try fulfilling that, rather than just reading in between the lines, or trying to find out some or the other loophole in the system. Or maybe I have seen companies trying to interpret the same guidelines in their own manner, I would say, rather in their own convenience, so that the whole objective is somewhat defeated, that is somewhat not met. And over the years, FSSAI has been giving us a lot of guidances in terms of how to implement a law, how to implement a certain order. And, they have been trying to address the practical challenges, by having a lot of consultations between the industries and, the lawmakers and the people who are there. So I think, we have seen a lot of things available, in terms of adulteration. We have the dark book, which is available. We have, the pink book, we have the orange book, and, we have guidance documents on various categories, various products. So I think the FBO need to start, looking at FSSAI from a more holistic point of view and see, because they are also there to help you to enable, and fulfill the law. That is a paradigm shift which we need to focus on. And I have seen it happening, but yes, there is still some long way to go. And, that's one thing which we need to, be more focused on.
Excellent. Rajesh, what are your thoughts on what are some of the things that food businesses should focus on?
The only requirement here is implementation in true sense. Whatever the written in the regulation, or maybe if I am going to have the FSSC certification, the clauses what mentioned are also well defined what you need to do. And if we follow, there is no, second thought, we have to be prepared for those audit.
Like a mock audit or a gap audit is a great way of, understanding where you don't go for the full certification, but at least understand where you stand.
Where you stand, yeah.
Able to see, how you can improve your process.
Right.
Bushra, what are your thoughts on this?
So certainly, I think according to each and every industry, and when you holistically, if you just look at the organized players and some unorganized players, so you have to create a roadmap for each and every industry type. And I always say this quote, Taj Mahal cannot be made in one day. So yes, you have to create a roadmap around it. There is certain basics compliances that need for all the FBO to adhere with, that is FSSAI licensing and registration regulation, yes, encompassing all the attributes mentioned in Schedule 4 requirements. But on and whole, sometimes even the voluntary services like the hygiene rating and lately RUCO, which is also one of the initiative from FSSAI as an Eat Right India movement. Then there is one regulation which has come up for surplus food. So wherein the wastage is just going into the waste yard. So, FSSAI has given the whole plethora of information to us. With the collaboration of industries and with the collaboration of technical committee and the scientific panel, now it's time for us to what we pick. And on and whole, if you see, there are certain guidelines like Harman was just mentioning, and then Rajesh was also mentioning, there are certain rules and regulations which is being drafted out for certain industry type. Lately, we see for unorganized player, there is a street food vendor activity also, where FSSAI has an impaneled with certain agencies. They are doing certain activities. And other classic example that we can take is RUCO. So, one more, fortification. Since we are in India and we always think about malnutrition, so fortification is also one thing where we should look at. And as a food business operator and being in the industry for so long, I always think that when we are procuring the raw material, or when we are asking the suppliers and we lay down certain standards to them, and I think that's a very big initiative even for food industries, where they are enforcing and training and retraining their suppliers, who is also an FBO, to adhere with certain basic protocol. So on and whole, like umbrella, FSSAI is an autonomous body, but as an FBO, if we understand our responsibility and lay down certain rules and regulation, do's and don'ts, to percolate that information to all the stakeholders who are working with us, I think it will be really great.
I think out of all the three things, I've taken away two big points. I think the first part of getting better on hygiene, on safety, and on compliance. One is FSS has already set up mechanisms for you to understand this. Something like hygiene rating audits, right? And multiple other certifications which have come up, and creating hygiene rating auditing agencies, like certified agencies who can come and do it for you, having the concept of self-audit, right? Where they give you the checklist before and they actually push you to do a self-audit before you apply for a final audit. I think that step is now being removed. But that was, I think, a great way of letting the industry self-regulate, but giving them all the tools that are required. And the next one obviously was the FOSTAC training, or the training infrastructure, making sure that people are being, able to. I mean, there is an infrastructure created for training the right set of people, in the country. So that actually brings me to my next point, which is about FOSTAC, right? So for people who don't know what FOSTAC stands for Food Safety Training and Certification. It's a program or initiative out of FSSAI, where for every food business you need to have one food safety supervisor for every 25 food handlers. This has been one of the most successful programs in the country because it has been run as a public-private partnership, right? And from what I hear in the back channels, FSCCI may be soon getting an award on a international platform for this initiative. That being said, I think all of us have been associated with Foster at some point or the other. I think during its infancy as it was growing. But I think there's a lot of I think there are some scopes of improvement in FOSTAC, right? So Rajesh, I'll start with you over here because I know you've also been connected to FOSTAC for a long time. What do you think is something that the FOSTAC program can improve upon?
So, thanks, Ashwin. So when it comes to the FOSTAC, though, I'm the organization. We are also FOSTAC training partner with the FSSAI. So what I see, what we need to improve, what is the next thing? See, currently, as you mentioned, one supervisor on 25 food handlers. What I see as a person is not meeting the requirement. So somewhere FSSAI should think on creating pool of people on at least basic. See, if there is a 25 one food safety supervisor, so can FSI create a kind of basic or the kind of the COVID one, which was created, and you see, the multiple people got trained. So this kind of the awareness related program will help to learn those other food business, food handlers also, how to handle the food. If we'll go, though the organized sectors having the certain, structure, who all can work in which all areas. But if we'll go into the unorganized sectors, the hiring process or the people who's working, they don't know ABCD of the food hygiene or the food handling, even though they are handling the food. So how we can create awareness among those people? Somewhere FSSAI as a regulator also need to think. Though in the initial days, of this FOSTAC, Mr. Pawan Agrawal was thinking to create getting every individual certified for the FOSTAC, but somehow that dream not become true because of the industry representation. Because we were not having that pool of the trainers who can train this many people. But I can see, if not 25, they should reduce that from 25 to 15 or 10 somewhere. I'm not talking about some anywhere for the business prospect, like it will help to grow the training partner. No, it will help industry to grow, industry to learn, because those the modules of the FOSTAC modules are well drafted and designed in a manner which in turn help food handlers to learn how to handle the food. Unless we create the awareness among those food handlers, we cannot think of the safe food. Because I have personally seen. So I'll take 2 more minutes to give a story. One day I was in Delhi and I was going to one of my relative, and I parked my car close to one of the juice corners. And he was putting the ice into a tube. And for what purpose? To create a small, the cubes which he can pour into the juice.
Okay.
And the kind of, he was making that small granules. If you'll see, you will stop drinking those juice. So I've spoken to that guy, asked him why you are doing. So what he was saying, sir, देखो ये बड़े बड़े जो आते हैं आइस के टुकड़े, ये इतने आसानी से टूटते नहीं हैं, तो हम इसको ट्यूब में भरते हैं और डंडे से जब पीटते हैं उसके बाद वो छोटे छोटे होते हैं, उसको हम डालते हैं। मैं कहा कि भाई ये जो जिस ट्यूब में आप डाल के कर रहे हो, ये पता है आपको ये हानिकारक है आपके लिए, इसका पता भी नहीं कि फूड ग्रेड है। सर वो नहीं पता है, लेकिन हर कस्टमर ठंडा मांगता है, मैं क्या करूंगा, तो मैं ठंडे के लिए डालता हूँ। सो इफ मैं उसको थोड़ा सा समझाया, शायद वो समझा भी होगा, एटलीस्ट अपने घर वालों के लिए नहीं करेगा, मुझे जहां तक पता है, जो उनकी थॉट होती है। बट what I'm trying to say, unless we train them, what are the issues with respect to handling this kind of food in this manner, they cannot improve. So there is a lot of training needs are there which need to be fulfilled. And see, India is a different set of country, though I am also Indian, you also Indian. But why I'm saying different set of country, because लोग यहाँ डंडे से सुनते हैं सर। अगर if there is a regulation, people will start thinking in direction. If that 25, that though in 2000, almost 5 years back, it was decided to have one person, the out of 25. So we have, the improve now, but FSSAI also need to move into the different direction. The step ahead. Though that time there is a very limited pool of the trainers, very limited pool of the resources. Now it's improved. So should focus on creating one on 20, one on 15, one on 10 kind of, which in turn will help. So this is one layer. If you'll see at the module kind of, the content of those modules, that is well defined. Each and every point is considered in a manner which will help those food handlers or the food safety supervisor to manage the food safety in their respective, the premises.
I think that's a fantastic point. Harman, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, Rajesh has actually shared one of the very practical, pain points which we see across when we travel. So, I also travel a lot. So what I observed is that, the practical implementation at the very grassroots level is still missing. I will not comment on what should be the ratio 1:25 or what, but one thing certainly I believe that FOSTAC can improve. So I was recently looking at the FOSTAC site that there are a lot of people who have done the train the trainer course on FOSTAC. The list is huge. So why not we come up with such a provision, some arrangement, so that these people, these individual trainers can rather than tying up with some agency or a body to deliver the FOSTACs, there has to be some provision for them to allow to do it individually, of course with the prior approval of FSCI. So that will help us to reach the wider audience, the big masses. That's the need of the hour right now. If you go to the countryside or to the deeper you penetrate into the villages, into the areas, you will not find the level of awareness, the level of implementation which ideally law is looking for. So I think encouraging more of offline sessions. I know this the last 2 years of COVID has pushed us a lot to the online sessions. Where the efficacy and the implementation is not that great. But yes, the more we move to offline sessions and the more we utilize this, the talent which we have on our base to, go travel and spread the word of FSCI in real terms and spirit.
Bushra, what are your thoughts on how FOSTAC can be improved?
So yeah, certainly aligning and, the thoughts of Rajesh and Harman. I have two solutions around it. I just thought of. And I really feel that, this ratio of 1:25 is something probably FSSI has also thought of a roadmap, like let's start. So I think that's the vision that they were looking at least let's make it a basic level of mandates. So the industries will start doing it. But on and whole, if you see the food business operator, they're training more people. And the frequently what we see an issue is attrition. Like each and every organization has an attrition. Like, so like, let's tomorrow Bushra has trained, and you know, she has switched to other organization, and then there's a problem. So in order to combat that, industries by default, I mean, as per my knowledge, they are trying to train more people. But yes, one very big hiccup is the implementation. So implementation, as in, like, when you talk about the organized player, they know. But if you talk about a person who's working as a food handler at a chef level, they have their knowledge, and they will, you know, try to ensure all the due diligence. But if you talk about a commie or an like basic level of food handler who does not even know what is the difference between safety and hygiene, he will dodge up the process. So in order to make sure, so what you need to do, you have to create a sensitization program. And regional languages, I think this is something which we have to look at, the regional languages, because uh, all the modules, everything, the content, the PPT, everything is in English, as whatever trainings I have attended. So if we can create a blend of regional languages and the presentation, I think it will be a good solution. And at the same time, uh, you understand the person who's striving and struggling to work 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, they cannot devote time at one go. So probably we have to look at smaller sessions. We can say that first level of session would be focusing on this, and after some time they have to undergo some extra level, so that division should also happen at the same time. But yes, with due respect, whatever activity has been taken forward by the authority, and so many TOTs, so many training partners, I think hats off, commendable job done. But uh, and one more thing I have a thought around, and you know, somehow if the organized players or the non-organized players, yes, making a supervisor as one of the caller, but even if we train the experts in the organization itself, and rather than this dependency of the assessor or the dependency on the certification or the training partners, I think we can have better numbers to look at. So these are the three things that I can think
That is
of.
fantastic. So I really like the point which you spoke about, which was the regional languages, right? And you have taken away one of our. We are working on a secret project. It's called the Food Safety Playbook, in which we wanted to take a basic food safety video, a 1 hour video, not 4 hours, not 8 hours, a 1 hour video shot in every regional language of the country, and to make it a little bit more interesting, not presented by people, not food safety professionals, but presented by celebrity chefs. So there's a little bit of glitz and glamour to it. And so that's a project we are working on at the back end just when the pandemic hit, right? So right now it's gone on the back burner, but we're going to pick it up again. And the idea is those videos will be freely available everywhere, but we want people to watch those videos because see, one is you create content, but if that content doesn't get delivered and you can't check the effectiveness of the content, then it's kind of pointless. Right. So I like the regional part, but if nothing else comes out of food safety playbook, at least the regional language PPTs will come out of it, which we will be sharing with FSSA and all the other training partners, as our way of kind of giving back. So I think that was a fantastic point to share. All right. So moving on to the next thing, which is some of maybe the latest trends which are coming up. Right. So one of the trends which is coming up now is nutritional labels in the menu items for restaurants. Right. Harman, I'm going to start with you on this. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think what do you think about this trend? Do you think it's going to help, it's going to harm? What do you feel?
Yeah, so see, looking at a very larger level, this is a very welcoming step, aiming to, put the population on a right track, and avoid them, basically, I mean, we all see that, what are the obesity levels and how much are these cardiovascular diseases which are more prevalent. So FSSAI has been always very much instrumental in taking steps from time to time, aiming to cut down and limit and encouraging the masses to have a healthy eating. So this has, I mean, there's a very mixed reaction from the industry. While it is practically, logically, and looking from a larger angle, this is a nice step. But there are a lot of limitations, which are attached to it. And one of the, biggest limitation which here is I can see is the cost. I mean, although some renowned brands, they can still afford. So there are two methods of testing: the practical testing method and the theoretical testing method. So cost is a big deterrent. If you nowadays, for any probably a chain, or maybe this food service establishment, there are hundreds of menu items which are there on there. So that will surely going to cost you a bomb. And if you are going to go by the theoretical testing, so we don't know what is the accuracy level. What we are saying is whether truth or not, because nowadays, with the changing dietary habits of the people, these restaurants are coming up with a lot of new innovations, a lot of new products which have ingredients which are more exotic than standard, and they are more global ingredients. So we don't know, these complexity of ingredients, actually pushes us to go for actual testing, and thereby increasing the cost. Other than cost, time is also a big, it's a huge, it's a very time consuming activity. I know, if you have to, do it diligently, it will take your 3 to 4 months of time, although the representations have been coming in, but, as we see the deadline is approaching nearby. So probably, we need to implement sooner than later. And one of the more practical challenges I was just discussing in one of my internal, discussions. So right now, the supply chain in India is not that robust. It's not that systematic. So today we might have to resort to having, one ingredient getting purchased from 3-4 different suppliers as a backup, as a contingency plan. So, what will happen today? I'm having ingredient A from A, B, and C. I don't know, what can be the change in formulation from various suppliers. So that will simply, impact my, calorific values in a big way. And, apart from that, that is not the only, that is not the only way. These restaurants also run a limited time offers, from time to time around festivals. So how to, play around with that? Because if I'm going to put on my menu, I certainly have to, declare these things. And the business people think in that way. If we declare the calories, that might discourage the customer from eating our dish, and the industry feels that my business is going to be impacted. So I mean, there is a whole mixed bag of opinions, which people are talking about. I don't know, but yes, at a bigger level, it is a welcoming step we need to implement. But yes, let us find out ways of doing it, and see if how FSI can help us, address these practical challenges. So we find a very fine balance between compliance as well as the business.
Bushra, what do you feel? Do you think nutrition labels in restaurants is going to help business, harm business? Is it going to help people? I'm thinking harm people. What are your thoughts?
It's a good initiative again. I mean, in order to keep your consumer informed and what is your daily value calorie intake that you're taking. So in health aspects, it's of course one of the call outs from Eat Right India movement. But on and whole, if you see the challenges, yes, to some extent, it can affect the business. Because if you on and whole see on the platform, there are bakery products, there are sweet dishes. By default, those products have high calories. So it may, affect the business as well. But other thing that we think of, suppose if I have a thali, like, a combo of various products. Today, I want to serve it with chola. Tomorrow, I may change it to bhindi masala and my roti. Then that combination. So one segment where they have a call out for serve size. This is holding also a big contradiction in terms of how to meet those requirements. Because if we, even for manual nutritional calculation, if we go ahead and if there is a call out from the business team that, boss, we want to launch it next day, then it's quite tricky. But yes, every initiative welcomes. Initially, there are certain hiccups, but we as food business operators try to adhere to the protocols what FSSI has laid down.
Rajesh, what are your thoughts on the nutrition label?
So I was hearing to Bushra and Harmanjot and rightly said. See, there are two angles of it. Like one is the compliance, another one is the how the business will manage that. Though I can say the other, I mean, the developed country already implemented this regulation, I mean, this kind of nutritional information, retail information since almost 10, 15 years. But we are in the early age of this compliance or the implementation. But when it comes to the nutritional information, if you see, though in the it's going to implement and make mandatory from the July 1st, but still, if you see the costing part of the tasting, it's one of the deterrent to the the implement by any of the FPOs. Why so? Because see, only not the tasting. Suppose I can do by the calculation method, theoretical basis. Then also have to have a person who can manage that. Because there are, all the businesses are not managed by the food technologists or the nutritionalists. So how to manage that? That's a bigger challenge I can see in the coming days. But not an issue. Somewhere we have to start, somewhere we have to begin this journey, and it's going into the right direction. And not only the nutritional information. The one thing which I can see, which is really an important aspect of the regulation should be in place, is the allergen declaration. Because there are the people who are allergic to X or Y. And if I'm not informing my consumer, my customer, they cannot take that, the informed choices. So suppose I am allergic to X or Y. If I am going to the restaurant, if he is not able to, at least I should move to the another restaurant. So those kind of, the welcoming steps are, which I can see from the FSSAI. And of course, the challenges would be there in initial days, and they will also understand. And they'll move into the phase manner only. It won't be a case like from the July 1st, they'll come and start, the putting penalties on the FPOs. That won't be a case. The earlier they were in position to implement for the 1st Jan. And then they mentioned, let's be from the 1st Jan, but enforcement will start from the July 1st only. So maybe they'll further look into these challenges and take certain decision which in turn help the FPOs. So this is my thought, but of course it's a welcoming decision from the regulator.
So I think this was in the works for the last 4.5 years when Mr. Pamela was the CEO. I remember this conversation with him. I think he had come back from Singapore. He had come back from somewhere, and he was really impressed. One was the score on doors. The hygiene rating was born from that. And the second was his idea of that he manufactured food, packaged food, has nutrition label. Why not restaurants? Right. So that was his idea, and it started back then. But again, the couple of things that I had highlighted to him was, one was cost, right? Like, because if you do traditional testing, it's going to cost a pretty penny, and if you have 100 dishes, that runs into a large sum. But right now, the good part is FSSAI is completely accepting calculated values, right? Now, again, to do calculated values, if you have 100 recipes, and if you don't have a nutritionist on board, or if you don't have a food safety professional on board, it can be difficult. That's where now softwares are being born, services are being born, right? Where this can easily be offloaded to another company who does this for you, which makes it easier. We've been doing it, for a while now, and we've done 2-3 lakh dishes till now. But we've made it as simple as possible and as affordable as possible. So even when small startups are coming, 20 dishes, 30 dishes, they're able to do it at a fraction of a price than testing. But that puts us in position, right? Because we are in the testing business as well, and this. So the testing side comes and says, but if you do calculation, you're taking business away from here, right? But at the same time, it's less about business, more about the good that you're doing in the world, right? If people are able to make informed choices, they can lead healthier lives. The good practice that I said, Rajesh, you touched upon it, was now when you go to restaurants, a lot of good restaurants start by asking, do you have any allergies that I should know of? The server will actually ask, do you have any allergies I should know of? And if you say something, he will very clearly say, okay, hey, this dish, this and this dish, you should not have because it has X, Y, Z in it. Right. So that I've seen that in a lot of good restaurants coming up, and very slowly and steadily it will go down. Maybe not to all, of course, but that awareness factor And once people become aware, once I become aware as a consumer that, hey, I'm allergic to this, I will go to places where I know my allergens will be taken care of, and they will, take care of it. So I think that will also lead to, businesses wanting to comply to this to adhere to a larger set of, customers. So that brings me to my next point on innovation in the field of, Bushra, go on.
Sorry, I have just one point.
Yes,
Since
of
you
course.
mentioned nutritional, so I was wondering whether I have to take this allergen pointer or the specific declaration. So, so one more call out there is about the specific declaration. When we talk about the specific declaration, if we are getting a packaged commodity, which is one of my ingredient, and the vendor or the supplier has actually called it out as, like high in caffeine or MSG, then it is easier for us to call it out at the platform or anybody. So, but for e-commerce entity, but if the vendor or the suppliers of that raw material has not called it off, then it's very challenging, and nobody will endorse into getting the tested polyols or polyphenols or be anything. Yeah, but yes, beverages do have this declaration, so that is easier. But as an ingredient, as somebody was calling it out, I think that level of due diligence also need to be laid down, so that even those packaged commodities are also being declared for these.
I think that will take a little while, where all ingredient manufacturers also rise to that level. And I think it's going to be
Definitely.
through FSSAI enforcement, where what should be called out, what should not be, what doesn't require to be called out. But I think I'm seeing FSSAI doing a lot of good work in that space, right? So very soon you will not have to worry about, if I'm using a sourcing an ingredient, will it have this or not? FSSAI would have enforced it, and all, at least the good brands, or majority of the brands, would have adhered to it, right? So right now, I know it's a concern. And I know we deal with that concern quite often, right? So glad that we got that up, right? So the next thing I want to quickly touch upon is the innovation in the field of food safety and compliance, right? There's a lot of new things coming in terms of AI, IoT, machine learning, and so many others, right? Rajesh, I wanted some of your thoughts on, and what are you seeing as some of the innovations which you have tried out or want to try out, or you wish you had in the field of, in our field, in the quality field, in the food safety field, the compliance field?
Yeah, so when it comes to this AI, so we already tried and we are in process of implementing. We are exploring we are also exploring the few more suppliers with respect to this. So we have one solution which we have pilot, that is the AI-based pizza checkers. So we are into the pizza manufacturing. So to check the quality of pizza, even the weight, temperature, even what temperature I have baked, though the time and temperature is already fixed for my oven, but yes, whether the final product, the finished goods which is coming, it's meeting the core temperature requirement or not. So all these things now automate, though it's in the trial phase only, but in the day to come will be in the restaurant. Like apart from this, even we have designed a machine which in turn will help to find out small foreign particles also in my pizza, and it will reject. So there would be a kind of I have to put up my final products. So automatically it will giving me the temperature, core temperatures, the weight of the pizza, whether it's meeting or not. And we have designed in a manner which will say the accepted or rejected. I mean the pass or fail. If fail, then directly it will go into the dustbin. If pass, then it will go to the consumer. So that is the kind of the solution available nowadays.
That is.
So we learned almost 3 years back from one of our global market, Australia. They implemented first, and now we are doing trial. Since it's not started just now. Before COVID we started, but somehow because of this COVID it was on hold. But again we are thinking to start. So these are the steps available now.
camera, there is a camera on top, there's a pizza. If it goes left, it will go to the consumer, and if it fails, it will just go in the dustbin. I could just do that in your store. That is
kind of,
phenomenal.
yes.
It is absolutely phenomenal. And anything else that you think should come as an innovation? अभी नहीं है, but if it was there, it would be great. Anything on top of your mind?
So this we discussed, like the something should be automatic. I mean the rejection or the acceptance kind of, this will be a reality in maybe few months later. Similarly, I mean the should be like if you see, though that can be done, but due to the cost constraint or whatever, that's not happening. We can even fix I mean those solution available, or the design of our delivery vehicles or the delivery container in a manner which will give a temperature, also will fix the timing or the temperature. If my temperature goes beyond this, whether we will be going to serve our consumer or not, kind of. So that could be one innovation can be done, though it's possible, but not done because of various reasons. One is the cost, second one is the handling part. So those are the constraint I can see.
Bushra, what about you? Is there any innovation that you would like to see in the food industry, or you've tried out and you've been amazed by? I would love your thoughts on that.
So yes, there are 4 things that IoT we've been hearing, and then artificial intelligence, machine learning. There's something which is coming out, blockchain, and that is something which is really, captivating my interest, and I want to learn more about it. So whatever journals or papers which I have read, blockchain has been associated for traceability. Then each and every industry try to utilize different tools for be my anybody's MIS or training and development. So I think this technology will certainly try to ensure and connect the entire mechanism or the tools to make it as an integrated management system for keeping the food processors more informed and quick decision. So that is one thing that I look at. And yes, QR code, like when we go to any of the stores and we scan, like Paytm, I have to pay you, and then I scan the code, the QR code, which is actually booming these days, and RFID tags, which helps us the complete traceability. And in US, for pest management system, they are trying this rodent monitoring rather than killing by via glue traps or anything. There are certain tagging system where they're trying to understand the movement of rodents. So if there is a frequency or the repetitive incidents in the respective premises, probably the pest management agency can help the food business operator. At the same time, rather than manual one-on-one store-wise activity, many companies in pest management are coming up with the analytics tools. Like anybody sitting in Bangalore can look at what's happening, what activities has been happening across India. So these are few of the things that is happening. And I want to quote one more example. Probably many people have done that. Apida, TraceNet for grapes traceability. That's one of the commendable initiative. Even Dave sir had taken that activity. So there are many other tools which is coming up, and there are many technologies which is coming in this domain. I want to quote one more. I was reading one article where they were saying Kellogg's had actually tried to identify the customer insights, where there is a booth in US, and if somebody wants to pick up which kind of porridge or which kind of granola they want to mix and match with apple or dried apricots. So even the customer insight can also be ventured with all those activity. And one very classic example that we had been seeing in India, IoT devices and the blast chillers, the freezers. There are IoT sensors which is being installed in each and every chiller and freezer. And at a central location, we can see if there is any deviation which is happening, then a rapid alert goes, or there's a beep noise where everybody gets alert. And there are auto sensors which let's say I have set out my threshold limit as this to this temperature, that is also being set it out. So all these technologies do help food business operator to create better food safety management system, but yes, at the cost, at the price of cost.
Critically important. Harman, what about you? What are you excited about in this space?
Yeah, this topic is very close to my heart. So, I have been talking a lot, so I'll just try to, wrap it up and conclude. I mean, this AI has been around pretty much since 1956, but, over the recent couple of years, this AI, be it machine learning or natural language processing or maybe optimization, this has, increasingly becoming, adopted by various FBOs. And this is, I think, a powerful way to, not only innovate, but to scale up your efficiency as well. So I'll just give you a couple of examples how this AI and IoT is, practically getting adopted. I'm sure the audience here would like to love and hear and would relate with their businesses. So one of the common one is, the tagging of the product. So if we have seen, this supply chain is still very, very fragmented. We are, not able to conclude, hardly 1 or 2% of the identified foodborne illnesses would be, actually traceable that to what was the issue. So now if we have seen radio frequency identification tagging. This tagging will actually help you to understand where your product is traveling from, what are the conditions, whether it is a transport issue or it is the issue at the manufacturing or at the handling or at the receiving, and that will, of course, be linked up with your other IoT devices to give you alert. And the future will be when this tagging will happen. Even tomorrow, if you have a smart fridge in your home, you will get a quick alert in your fridge that this item, this yogurt, for example, in your fridge is being voluntarily recalled. And that is the next level of integration which we are looking at. And not just that, the factories are looking at a very next level of IoT implementation in terms of self-optimizing the CIP controls. I have heard about an issue where there was a smart sensors, cameras installed in a big vat, and they will give you time-to-time alerts. They are pathogenic identifiers which are installed. So, they will give you time-to-time alert as to when to carry out the CIP. That will just help you to, reduce your cleaning cycles, cleaning cost, and only do a targeted treatment when necessary. And not only that, even in the F&B industry, this is increasingly getting adopted. We have now a series of cameras installed in our restaurant or in a FPO that will basically capture whether or not the person is wearing a mask. How frequently he's doing hand washing, how frequently he's doing a sanitization of working surfaces. So these smart programming cameras will pick the image accordingly time to time. They will retrieve the image, they will send the data, and the people who are who are monitoring the data or who are managing this entire piece will then start working on a very constructive action plans. So this is a very powerful way to ramp up your GMP compliance check. And not only that, this is going to this robotic linkage of these IoT and AI is definitely going to reduce the amount of manpower at various stages. And hence, accordingly, your chances of cross-contamination, your chances of any such, contamination coming from a personal, from a worker or from any other agent is definitely going to, be addressed in a big way. But of course, we all know technology comes with its limitation as well. We have limitations, these AI and IoT tools, they are not able to make judgments as the human brain can do. They are more susceptible to, more of adversarial attacks, more of a cyber attacks. And more than that, there is a big, challenge in front of us in terms of how we manage, how we store, how we, efficiently handle this big amount of data. There has to be someone sitting on top who will, monitor, who has to manage this. So of course, there are pros and cons of, this technology, but I'll just give you one small example in terms of auditing. So, I mean, if you want to understand this AI and IoT in practically in the food industry, so the classic example is, the I Succeed. I don't know how many of you here are aware of the I Succeed. I Succeed is basically a tool which will help, people sitting far across in different parts of the world to come together, do a virtual audit. Say if I am doing an audit wearing the I Succeed glasses, that will simply help me, if I'm going into an issue, if I'm entering into any production line, into any process, I can immediately, bring the expert right into that audit, live with me, who will help me to understand, who will help me to value add. So no, this remote auditing with I Succeed and getting experts, getting the subject matter experts, people, live into that situation so they can give you a value addition. That is, I believe, a very classic example of IoT. And, yes, this is going to be the future. I mean, companies will not be able to, avoid this for a much longer time.
I love that last thing of I Succeed, where you can bring in experts, quickly if you're facing a concern. That is absolutely fantastic. So out of this, we've been playing around in this space, for quite some time, right? We've moved to auditing digitally about almost a decade ago. But over the last couple of years, we've been playing in this concept called Hygiene Quotient, where we were able to remotely monitor sites using crowdsourcing images from the factory or from the restaurant. And that has become, it's a good mix of technology and humans, right? So I call it AI squared, which is artificial intelligence and actual intelligence, right? While images coming from machines, from cameras, from humans are important, finally, sometimes you need a person to make the judgment call, whether it is okay, go, no go. You still want a human to do it because it's more complex than just a machine trying to take a call based on the repetition learning that has gone through, basically machine learning, right? So that human taking a call is still important, and most people still prefer a human taking a call versus a machine taking a call, even though machines may be equally capable or sometimes you're more capable, but that factor of, hey, there's a trained human taking a call is important. So Hygiene Quotient was something that we played with, which is doing quite well in that space. So that actually kind of brings me to the end of my questions. I'm going to jump into some of the audience questions which have come in, right? So one thing which I'm seeing here is, I think one is on IoT, which we just spoke about. So I'm going to take that one. So cross-contamination is quite common, right? What are some of the common tips and tricks to prevent cross-contamination that you would recommend for somebody who's new to the food industry? Anyone wants to take that? Like, how do you avoid cross-contamination in the food industry?
So I'll just take it. So cross-contamination, there are various ways. It has to be a multi-pronged approach how you avoid cross-contamination. It can happen through the personal, it can happen through equipment, it can happen through ingredient. So you have to look at all the aspects. The person who is working on it, what are the raw materials? Is there any, mixing of raw materials or mixing of tools, or probably mixing of the area where you're working or the machine which you are handling? So, there is not one route to prevent the cross-contamination. You have to look at each and every angle, directly or indirectly working on it. And that's, now, you will, of course, find a lot of literature on the public domain, or maybe, on FSSAI also has published a lot of documents. So I'm sure that if you read through, that will help you to, give you just a set of context. But yes, you have to understand the three things. It can happen from a person, from an ingredient, from an environment, or from a tool or equipment or a small way you're handling. So just focus on all these issues, and probably this will help you to solve your concern.
I'll just add here with this question for allergens, probably preventing the cross-contamination. Color coding and zoning is also something which the industries are trying to incorporate. So that is also one of the activity. And yes, if you are, creating a systems and procedures within the organization that could, and you are percolating through some sensitization program to your food handlers, which is, of course, through some system or something, then at least you can try to, and during onboarding of that food handler, when you're just telling that there are some due diligence which is like on a P0 and there's something which is like P1, then I think that also really helps for establishing into the system.
Excellent. So the next question I've gotten is, how do you describe cold and hot storage models in commercial kitchens? I don't know the question. How do you describe hot and cold storage models? I probably didn't understand the question. Did any of you understand the question? I didn't get it.
Question is not clear.
Not clear.
Yeah.
So whoever's asked that question can rephrase that question and put it back in. We would love to pick that up. Right? So there's another one which has come up, which is which one would be better in the coming future to ensure food safety culture? Is it IoT? Is it smart packaging, such as indicators, barcodes, RFID? Arvind, I think this is up your alley.
Sorry, I mean, I did not get the question completely.
Which one is better to enforce, to ensure food safety? Is it IoT? Is it smart packing, such as indicators, barcodes, RFID? So is IoT going to help? Is smart packaging going to help? What do you feel?
So I think, I mean, smart packaging is one of the tool. It's a part of the, yeah, right now, as I mentioned about the tagging, I think this is quite relatable here. Smart packaging will again probably help you to identify that what are the storage conditions, what are the ambient conditions, or what are the conditions inside that package, which will further help you to identify, probably predict the shelf life or the expiry dates. So, I mean, this smart packing is very much a part of the IoT, and this both AI and IoT go hand in hand. AI are more of these software tools, and IoT, I would say, is these linkages of various sensors, various hardwares working together in tandem over the internet. So smart packaging is, yes, one of the innovative tool, and yes, that is the practical AI implementation which we are seeing around.
The next one is, how far do QSRs follow the process of rightly thawing their products before cooking, keeping in mind food safety? So rightly thawing the product. What are your thoughts? Is that, do people understand in the industry how thawing works? Is there some education to be done in that space? Rajesh,
yeah, Ashwin. So see, thawing, though I can see people are aware, but still there is a lot of gap with respect to thawing. So I've been to one of the bakery industry and I've seen how they were doing the thawing of those cream. Okay, so I've seen those people are putting that Tetra Pak into a hot water to thaw that. Okay, so I asked why you are doing this. So they are saying, sir, बिना thaw किए तो इसको use नहीं कर सकते. So I mean, I mean the ask, do you know how to thaw that? सर कुछ नहीं करना होता है, गर्म पानी में डाल देना होता है 15 से 20 मिनट के लिए और वो thaw हो जाता है. So that is a kind of understanding level of the food handlers. So I asked him, do you know the proper process of thawing? And you will be surprised to know he was well aware about. He was knowing before leaving last night, I have to put this Tetra Pak into the chiller, but I forget to do that. And that's why I'm doing this. So unless those training, what is the importance, what will happen if you are not thawing properly, those we need to calculate into the mind of those people, then only, and we should correlate with their, what will happen if it happens with their own family members. Unless they understand those replications, they cannot change their mindset. So that was one of the, I mean, the worst experience I had in my industrial visit I've seen. So see, of course, there's still a lot of gap into the training also, I can say, because there are mushrooming of those industries also happen, especially with respect to the cake industry. The small, I mean, the early days, if you talk about, I don't know, you must be from the urban area, I am from the rural area, and in my places, birthday celebration not used to be very, I mean, the common thing in my early days. Okay, only few families were celebrating the birthday of anyone into the family. Now, if you reach out to even into the remote areas, everyone is the whole of celebrating the birthday, they are bringing the cakes, and those help to have a mushrooming of those industries also, and they don't know how to throw that the cream or the similar. This is one example. There could be multiple example similar to this. So of course, if the thought, yeah.
I think there was a debate on this issue. You mentioned about a lot of home baking ideas coming up. I came across that there was an issue that these home bakings or these home chefs, these things they are going to be a part on, they're going to be under the ambit of FSSAI. So probably, I think in time to come, you will not be able to simply start up your venture, start supplying stuff to your neighborhood catchment. You have to apply for a license, and I think a lot of educated home chefs are actually doing that. But very soon this is going to be mandated, and I think Rajesh, this concern, which we all are we know that will be addressed at a bigger level.
So, by the way, it is mandated today also. And the fun part, and I was very shocked to see this. I had visited one of the FDAs in the state. They had two interns right outside the CEO's office. So I was wondering, and they were on social media. So I'm telling the EA, क्या interns are time pass कर रहे? They're like, नहीं, time pass नहीं कर रहे, sir. They're working on a very important project. I said, what important project? They're on Instagram. So he's like, no, we are finding out unregistered vendors on Instagram. Can you beat that? They were actually monitoring social media to find out people, because see, anyone who today starts off, goes on Instagram, Facebook, they put up stuff there, license and all will come later on. The FDA was actually using that as a way of finding these vendors and sending them a improvement notice or a notice, actually letting them know, hey, you need to apply for a license, right? So even the compliance and regulation are getting a little smart about this because they're aware of this problem. Right? And I think, especially during the pandemic, the number of home chefs has gone up, I think, 5 times.
You are underestimating the number 5 times.
5 times, I don't know outside.
Every household has become a chef now.
Yeah.
And, we don't know. Absolutely, this is a key point to find out unregistered people and bring them under the umbrella. Absolutely.
So, I don't know if you're aware of this app that started, I think, during the pandemic. It was called My Tree. It was basically a channel or a way of starting the building, where if I want to make something and serve somebody in the building, I can put it up over there. So it was like a mini platform, like a mini Zomato, mini Swiggy kind of a platform, right? And it was dedicated for buildings. Only downside, maybe it was a very big downside, is you had to go to the other person's house with a dabba for them to pack. And so I remember I tried avoiding it for as much as possible, but I gave in and I wanted to try different things. I had to go with the dabba, stand outside people's homes, khana do jagah, which was a very different experience, right? You start empathizing with delivery boys a lot more once you become a delivery boy. Your empathy for them goes up much higher, right? So I think that's the end of our questions, and we've overshot by 15-20 minutes, but so worth it. I think we've gotten so many insights, from all of you all. Thank you so much for taking out your time and coming on this panel discussion. We had stopped doing a lot of these. Equinox was to do a lot more panels and a lot more webinars, but we've now decided to start doing this again, and I'm so glad that you guys were the first ones, on this, and we'll be doing this a lot more often, and we will look forward to your support. Thank you for the audience for taking up the time and coming. We're almost on a few 50 odd people on this webinar on Zoom, and I think a few hundred on YouTube, which is awesome. Do promote the concepts of food safety in your community, because end of the day, it's a circular economy, right? If you do something good, it'll come back to you. If you don't prevent something good, you will end up being the victim of your own negligence, right? So with that, I thank all the panelists one more time. Thank you again, and I thank all the audience members. I wish you all the very best.
Thank you, Ashwin, for giving us the opportunity to share our insights, and I hope our viewers would have loved this insightful discussions. Yeah, thank you so much.